Welcome back to the Perfectly Holistic Radio Show. We're having a few issues tonight with some tech. So, unfortunately, I am not going to be streaming to Facebook as I originally planned on because of some technical issues going on with them. But we are on YouTube and we are on Instagram tonight, and I'm excited to welcome two very special guests to the show. So, let me just start by just giving a brief introduction, and then I'll let you guys tell our viewers a little bit more about you guys. Um, Chris Ruiz is with Bloom Bioscience, and he is a cat dad. Um, he's an amazing cat dad, actually, and who has a genius mind and loves science and research, and has come up with some amazing products that we're going to talk about tonight. But he also helped my client Ava here with her adorable kitty Zorro, and so we're going to talk about Zorro's journey when he developed heart disease and kidney issues and was in the ER and had this very traumatic experience. So let me just pass it over to you, Chris, and if you want to do a little bit more intro and just kind of tell people briefly a little bit more about you, that'd be great.
Okay. Hi, Pam. Hi, Eva. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
My name is Chris Ruiz. I'm the founder of Bloom Bioscience. We started our company in 2020. We spent a few years refining our formulations, and our whole goal was to fight kidney disease in cats. But along the way, we found out that kidney disease is a downstream end of the vascular dysfunction of the vascular system, and so we went in that direction. My background is I'm a retired engineer. I retired in 2018. Spent 30 years as an engineer and doing all kinds of projects around the country. But I've always had the passion for saving cats, doing cat rescue, working with community cats, TNR, and FIP cats. So this kind of fit right in with my retirement plan. Actually, I'm working more now than ever, doing research, developing supplements, and working with literally cats around the world and dogs. It all applies to dogs also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But our whole thing is less meds, more prevention, and that's pretty much us in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And Ava, go ahead and just tell our viewers just a little bit about you and about Zorro.
So I am a first-time cat mom in the past 5 years. I got two, got one, couldn't wait to get another one.
Mm-hmm.
I work in medical sales for humans, so very health focused, and got the cats and research, and thought I was doing all the things and feeding the best food. And,
Right.
Somehow this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so Zorro was my first cat. He was the one who started my little love affair with the kitties.
Mm-hmm.
They dumped him outside terribly. You could tell he was a house cat, and just, I fed him, fell in love with him, and that was it. So I've had him for 5 years, and little health issues, incrementally getting worse. But then this was really, the icing on the cake. This was preceded by a GI incident that wasn't great. A lot of inflammation, had to get a sonogram, and I guess, everything is connected, right? Chris can speak to this better than me, but just issues until this happened. And this happened, I want to say, the beginning of the summer-ish, right? Maybe May or June. I think that's, yeah. And,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I woke up in the morning and Zorro was at the foot of the bed, just clearly hyperventilating. I mean, clearly something was very, very wrong. And my vet actually went online and found one of Chris's products, the Rootin' Cat, and that's how we started, into his whole product line, and it literally saved his life.
Wow. And kudos to your vet, because not very many vets would do that kind of research on the spot and go figure out, okay, what can we use? Because my toolbox is limited here.
Exactly. Yeah, she's wonderful. So really
that's amazing. I know there's a lot of people that are going to be watching and listening that are going to be very jealous of that fact. And I do want to just stop here and just let you guys know I was able to reconnect to Facebook just a second ago. So we are back on Facebook Live.
Awesome.
And just if you guys are watching, if you have questions as we're going through tonight's show, just drop a comment over here and let us know where you are watching from as well. Laurie Christine says, I have lost 2 cats to HCM. So she understands how serious heart disease can be. So let's start at the beginning. So, well, you kind of gave us the beginning. So what happened he gets admitted to the ER. Is that what happened? And then your vet finds this product. So start from there.
Yeah. So he had his attack, and then we went to the ER, right?
Yeah.
And they put him in the oxygen chamber, and he was there for almost 2 full days. And I mean, everything was just wrong. It was bad. It was really scary. And you're blown away because you think you're doing all the things, and clearly something's going wrong. So he was finally well enough to come home, I would say, maybe on the 3rd day, the latter half of the 3rd day. So after 3 full days there, I was ready to take him home. And, anticipating that, I had been speaking to my vet, and we went right there. I knew it was a lot for him, but I just trust her so much and everything. And so she got on her computer and she was like, we need some support here. And she came across the Bloom website, the Bloom Supplements, Chris's company, and the Root and Cat, which is for vascular support, right, Chris? And she said, this seems interesting. And there was some, even on the website, if I'm not mistaken, there's like clinical information, studies and whatnot, right? Yeah.
We have plenty.
Yeah. And she was really impressed by the science. And I said, okay, great. And she said, check out their other products as well. She said, I think they have some interesting things, but let's start with this Root, and it seems promising. So I said, okay. So I ordered the Root, and I did not actually order any other products. I was looking at, or maybe the immune support. I did. I think I did. But anyway, I had a question because I ask a lot of questions, and I reached out to the company, not knowing, I think I was speaking to Chris, or somebody told him that I was speaking to him, but somehow he and I got in touch through my inquiries, and just so much knowledge, right? And so we're just really in depth. And I was like, this is like the best customer support I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. This is awesome. So it just felt very open to continue that dialogue. And and then when he sent me, when I ordered the things, I believe I had ordered, I think, the immune and the Root, but he included the hydration, which was the electrolyte supplement after, because I think somewhere in my correspondence, I had, explained the issue specifically, which was just proactive on his part. I didn't know. And I was like, okay, great. And I had started the Root, but not the electrolytes yet. And then Zorro had a relapse, but a few weeks afterwards, we went to the cardiologist. He wanted to add another medicine. Okay. I had started the protocol intermittently, not everything I should have been doing, not knowing the Bloom protocol. And then he had a relapse, and I reached out to Chris, and I was hysterical. And, kudos to him, because it was late. It was like a Friday night at like 10:30, and I was freaking out. And I knew that we had been emailing. And I said, what would you do if it were your cat? Because my instinct was telling me, and I'm pro traditional medicine. I'm not anti, but you have to do your research, and you really have to be smart about everything. And he's like a double whammy because he knows both sides of that coin, right? So everything that he does is still clinical, even if it's a natural alternative, right? So don't discredit the science on that side of the coin. And he walked me through it, and he said, if it were my cat, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a vet. He was very clear about that. I said, I understand the liability, I'm making my decisions. And we just had a really honest human conversation. And I decided to transition 100% to the Bloom protocol. And within days, significant change.
Can you describe what that was? Like, what was his state before you transitioned him? Like, what was going on, if you remember physically what was going on there? And did the vet give you answers of like what made him regress?
So
No, they didn't.
no, not really. From what it sounds like, and Chris can speak better to this than me, but it seems like the medicines that were supposed to fix a problem weren't, and they were just causing more problems. Chris, yeah, he can really speak more.
Yeah. So initially, Eva called me, and they ordered Rutin for a pleural effusion. He had a pleural effusion and pulmonary edema, both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so Rutin is kind of known to reduce the inflammation and reduce some of the fluid buildup. And so in talking with her, I said, well, Rutin's kind of the third supplement you want, but I'll include the other two. And you want to take the other two more importantly, and Rutin's kind of the third option you want to take on that. And explained what was going on. But at the time, that was like a couple weeks before that last emergency, the cat just had heart disease. And then looking at the numbers, I don't know if you really read those numbers, Eva, but that was heart failure. It was pretty critical. It was as bad as it can be. And I said, the drugs they're taking, especially the Diuretics, that's going to cause a kidney injury. If, in the next month or so, and then I think a week later, he started to crash with an AKI, an acute kidney injury.
Wow.
And then I think your vet got the results for that, the third vet visit in 2 months, and you had 2 emergency room visits, and the vet said, go to the emergency room again. And that's when you called me and said, you know what, this cat's going downhill. What do you think we should do? And we just had, like I said, we had a good heart-to-heart talk, and it goes, my cat, this is what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so she already had the supplements, but was only given it the rutin. And one of the things with the acute kidney injury that she sent me texted me the values. It was peen blood. It had brown urine.
Yeah.
And the proteinuria values went from, I think from a month ago was 0.1, then 2 weeks later is 0.2, the UPC, and then went to 0.4. So it's just fast, every week it was just doubling.
Yeah.
Proteinuria. So I explained to her what causes proteinuria, which everyone I don't think they understand what proteinuria really is. So understanding it is what is part of the protocol for to reverse a kidney injury like that. So the hydration, in short, if you get the cat, which her cat wasn't drinking water, right? It's not a drinker. You had to, I think, spoon feed it or syringe feed it. And I said, it's critical he gets the water 5 to 10 ounces a day. Because every time you eat or drink, you're changing the chemistry of your body. Mm-hmm. And so the water he gets in is very critical and very important. And so what we do, our hydration product is a mix of electrolytes and minerals put in purified water. And that we think is the ideal water that's going to balance his blood out. Mm. And so that was step one, is we got to stop proteinuria and stop this acute kidney injury. Yeah. And we'll move on later on and attack the heart issues going on. So, I looked at the drug list and said, get off all the drugs they're taking, get off the steroids, definitely get off the diuretics. That's just doubling down. Mm-hmm. Because what diuretics do, I am very against diuretics, by the way. I mean, they serve a purpose like every once in a while for like one quick use, but not for continuous use. They deplete all your electrolytes, which and Zorro, looking at his history, was very short on potassium. Mm. And I was telling her, that the water is very safe dilution with potassium. And that's the key. We got to get his potassium levels back up, because I think that's what's causing his heart issues also. Mm. Potassium is critical for the heart. Yeah. And so within a couple of days, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eva, but the cat started doing better. He stopped peeing blood instantly. And we actually wrote a paper on that prior to. So when it pees blood, it's called hematuria. Mm-hmm. We describe the science behind it in detail, why it's going to stop peeing blood. And it's the same principle of proteinuria. It's basically, blood and proteins have negative charges, as does the glomerulus of the kidneys. And so when 2 negative charges get together, they repel each other. Mm. If that breaks down, now the blood and the proteins can go through the kidneys. And that's the key. So you can recharge those again, then now they'll repel each other as they should and work as an electrostatic filter. Mm. And so that was the whole key I was trying to get to. We had to get the proteinuria done first, and then we'll worry about the heart issue later, but let's get that done right away. And so I think I just had you monitor the urine. I go, just tell me how he's doing physically, every day. And then every time he pees, see if you can catch it and check the color. If it looks healthy, then no need to rush him to hospital. And we kind of took it from there on a day-by-day basis. But he recovered really quick.
Yeah, and how often were you syringing him water?
I think his body just needed it because he was drinking it. He just was willing. And I kept saying to him, more, as much as he's willing to take. And he drank, an exorbitant amount of water. It was remarkable to see a little cat drink that much. His body needed it. So he was very good. And even now he's very good because I put it in their water. Both my cats religiously, they'll drink it. So, and then I was doing it every 2 hours. For inspection after that front load, it was every 2 hours. And I had a cat sitter, I had my mom come out every 2 hours. And it was, his urine was, when I say brown, like wood brown, like really dark, really disconcerting, really problematic. And it slowly scaled down, and it was remarkable. And his energy and his eyes, the whole thing, it was, really great.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think the typical protocol when they get blood in the urine, they want to give them antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
or have diuretics. I'm not sure, but everything they were giving them was going to make it worse. So I explained her the science, and like I said, I'm not a vet, but if this is my cat, this is what I would do, and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
And we took that protocol, and we've done it just time and time again, understanding how the kidneys work and understanding how blood works.
Mm-hmm.
Chemically, with natural chemicals being electrolytes and minerals, manipulate the blood to be where it should be. And then that's our whole protocol. And that's our whole science behind it. We want to use natural supplements to fight what's, really, it's almost natural. The diet is what's causing it, right? I think we'll agree. I've seen a bunch of your podcasts that the bad diet or what's in these processed foods breaks down the body. So we're going to fight fire with fire. We're going to put some good supplements to counterbalance it versus giving meds that inhibit a lot of, like whack-a-mole, inhibit one issue, but then cause two more on the back end.
Yeah.
They're actually worse. Mm-hmm. So I kept telling Eva, less is more, because there were also a bunch of other drugs they're giving you, like he had hot spots or bald spots on him. He's itching.
His hair was starting to fall out. Yeah. His stomach, had a spot on his head. I mean, it was just one thing after another. I couldn't believe it. It was just a snowball.
And part of the thing you said, I'll keep giving him that stuff. I go, no, don't give him anything else. Let's treat the root cause, and these secondary issues should clear themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
The basic goal is to get to homeostasis,
get
blood to optimum levels, and all these little minor issues, the itching and bald spots, hot spots, are going to go away.
Yeah.
And within a week, it started going away. Within 2 weeks, I think his bald spot just totally went away.
Yeah.
The itching stopped, and he was back. How long did it take for him to get back to his Zoomies where he's running around?
I mean, not very long. I want to say maybe a couple of weeks. To Zoomies, just a couple of weeks. But he was just the change of he wouldn't jump up on the counter even. I mean, it was bad, and slowly, incrementally, but better. Yeah, Zoomies just took a couple of weeks. And I will say, we had our 6-month follow-up just a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Sonogram and blood work at the cardiologist. And echocardiogram too, I guess 3 things, right? Does that sound right, Chris? I don't know. But they did a lot of things. We were there a while because I wanted the full workup. And, the cardiologist came into the room and his hands were at his side and he just stared at me blankly and he didn't blink. And he goes, and I knew it was okay because obviously the behavior, but at the same time, your heart just sinks a little bit because he looks so crazy. And you're just like, what's wrong? He's like, everything is normal. He couldn't even believe what he was saying to me. And I was like, what? It's the thickening of the heart, the blood pressure, all the things. I mean, I'm, butchering what he was saying, but there was a list and they were significant and they were all the things that had been wrong were now within normal range. I was.
Okay, so did he ask you what you did?
No. And that's the first thing I said to Chris. I said, and you didn't even ask. What are you doing?
And we talked about that. I go, when you go in there, I think we kind of kid around and go, what do you think your vet's going to say? And you're like, oh, they'll be so excited to help other patients. I go, I hate to break it to you, but they're just going to kind of look at you and just shrug and say, cats are weird.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I couldn't believe it. It was just, he had no interest. And I mean, at that point I was like, whatever, I'll just leave with my good news. But yeah. Amazing.
I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised at the same time. Because, I mean, that is such a huge win.
Yeah. Because his blood values, so on July 3rd, his heart values were literally at heart failure.
Yes.
At that level. And then, but he also saw the acute kidney injury going on. So 2 weeks later, he got tested for the blood test and the urine test for UPC for proteinuria. And the proteinuria went down back to nothing. So that went to perfect.
Wow.
And then we waited another month and a half for the heart test to get done, the cardiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers came back not just normal, they came back perfect. I mean, those optimum health.
Wow.
It wasn't just middle range, it was the high health that you can't get any better. And so if you look at those numbers, if you get a chance, you send those to Pam. Those are pretty amazing. It went from literally heart failure, if you look on the list, having that level of that hormone. It's a very long name that they call it, but those tests, I can't even remember the name of it. It was like it's a long name, but that protein that the heart produces when it's under stress was at a level 30.
Oh,
but it should be below, at 300, it should be below 100.
Okay.
And on the final test, it was at 50.
Wow.
Which is well below what's considered healthy.
Yeah. Wow. And
Yeah.
so did you change his diet or anything? Tell our viewers what he was eating at the time, and did you have to change anything in his diet?
Well, actually, Chris, that was one of the first things he asked me was what I
Yeah.
was feeding him, but he gave me the thumbs up on that. I was actually and still am feeding them Ziwi Peak.
Okay.
So it's and the wet, only the wet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's they've got New Zealand mussels in there. They seem to be, I don't know. Chris gave it the thumbs up. That's all. I was like, great, we'll keep doing that. So yeah. And I never did feed them kibble. That was a very short-lived kind of, very beginning of my cat journey, and then did the research and was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So the Ziwi Peak, always fed them the freeze-dried raw treats, so that was fine. He said to limit the churros because I was a little overboard on the churros. It's like a snack sometimes, not like all the time. So maybe they cut that back, but otherwise, I will say though, aside from the diet, just something that kind of frames this whole conversation that I did not mention. He was given 6 months to 2 years to live. I think that's really important. He was that bad when we went to the ER that they said, at this current state, if nothing, 6 months is the worst, the best is 2 years. So that's awful. Like you just go home with a death sentence, right? I mean, it was really awful. And this literally saved his life. So when I say it saved his life, like it's not just me being dramatic. That was the prognosis. So
Yeah.
And he's a young cat. He's only 6.5 years old. It's not like he's an old cat with a lot of diseases. He's a very young cat. 6.5 years is young.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That is amazing. Well, Chris, this is a good time to kind of dive into some of the science, because I know people that are watching are probably just their jaws probably on the floor. What are these supplements, and how does it work? Like, what was the difference, the distinguishing factor of what you guys implemented that, in your opinion, as a researcher and scientist and developer of this kind of product, can you give us a little bit more information or just maybe background on how they work and things like that?
Sure. So we have two supplements are our two main ones. And let me pull them up.
Yeah.
So it's the HydroLife and the Revitalife.
Mm-hmm.
So the supplements are what we call true supplements. So we analyze diets, and we're not trying to recreate the diet. We want to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
What's missing in the diet? What's missing ancestrally that they really needed, and why these cats getting so sick, and dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And it mirrors human disease. So humans get kidney disease like you wouldn't believe, as do cats. 1 in 3 cats gets kidney disease.
Yeah.
1 in 7 cats get heart disease. You combine them both, 1 in 2 cats will die of kidney disease or heart disease over their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge number, 1 in 2. But it's the one thing we found out, it's the same mechanism. So we're just treating one thing, and that's the vascular system.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll start off with the water. So water is so overlooked. People think water is water.
Mm-hmm.
I think just recently, people are finally getting in tune that, hey, I don't drink tap water. There's so much junk in it.
Right.
Chloride, fluoride, chlorine, fluoride, and all the particles that come from miles away between the treatment plant and your house.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have been drinking bottled water or purified water, but now they're starting to give their pets purified water, which is great, or bottled water. But it's still kind of missing. You're missing a lot of nutrients from what healthy water should be. So I see a lot of experts tell them to give your cats distilled water, which, again, I'll be saying this a lot. Every time you eat or drink, you're changing the chemistry of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so distilled water is good if you have a really salty diet, like if you or I are eating a heavy steak meal or baked potatoes, a bunch of salt in it. You want distilled water because that's going to dilute your system and dilute the salts. If your cats or dogs, and their dog food has a lot of salt, okay, distilled water is okay while they're eating, but the rest of the time you're missing out on a lot of the nutrients that animals got ancestrally by drinking spring water, mineral water that came from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the number one things, and this is my opinion, is potassium. And so if you look up online, they say cats and dogs aren't deficient in potassium in general, but it's very common for them to be hypokalemic, meaning short on potassium. But if you look on humans, which is very well studied, 97% of us are deficient in potassium. And so just like our diseases mirror into our animals, deficiencies, because they eat our leftovers and they pretty much get the same diet we do, except it's a much worse form, much more processed form. So potassium is a big one that's missing, and that's what we put in the water. And when I was looking at Zorro in particular, he was chronically deficient potassium.
How does that happen?
Well, it's just you need more potassium, like 10 times more potassium than you do magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only put in X amount in the dry form or in the food, because too much is going to do some damage.
Yeah.
And the only proper way to take potassium, the amounts you need in humans and cats and pets, is in a dilute form mixed in water.
Mm-hmm.
So you take 10 times the amount which you need versus the amount they can put in food. It'll just spike the system if you put it in a dry amount. And so in Eva's case, or Zorro's case, he was deficient in potassium. They'd give him potassium pills, which do very little. They're a dry pill, spike the system, versus being dilute and taken over time.
Right.
And it's interesting because Merck has some great tables on potassium. Here's the perfect dilution. If you're short on it, take this amount. And I don't think people are paying attention when they're in vet school that you're supposed to be doing that in a liquid form.
Mm-hmm.
So an easy shortcut would be just to take this, and that'll, and even if they're slightly high in potassium, it's at that dilute enough level where it's not going to do any harm. It's still going to do good. So as a prevention, you want to drink this. All animals should be drinking this as a prevention, and sick animals should be drinking it for just to get out of that funk.
So how does one determine if their cat or they even themselves is deficient in potassium? Like, would there be symptoms or signs that, hey, I need to go check this? Or because it's not something that we just put on our radar all the time. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you can test the blood serum. Is easy to test.
Mm-hmm.
So you get your annual checkups, and you want it kind of a little more to the higher side. So a lot of like cats are within the low side, they just kind of gets overlooked. Oh, it's within range, but it really isn't. It should be more medium to the high side. So if you're looking at your blood test and you see that it's on the medium to low side, then you got to up your potassium. And again, 97%, that's close to 100. We're almost all deficient in potassium. It's the amount you need is a crazy amount. That's going to be like about 20 bananas you're going to have to eat, and that's a lot of bananas to eat a day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get sick eating that many. But the only real way to take it, again, is in a dilute form in water. Okay. And so we have believe is a proper dilution in there, but we also have a potassium citrate. And what citrate does is even more overlooked than potassium by far. Citrate is just a great electrolyte, and that buffers and balances, can help buffer and balance the pH in the blood. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest problems with kidney disease is excess phosphorus. Well, instead of taking diuretics or taking aluminum binders, which is the worst thing you can do,
right? Right.
Is take the potassium citrate. So the citrates can compete with the phosphorus, and where phosphorus lowers the pH, citrate raises it. And citrate can actually act as a buffer in addition to that. So, and what that does is, so like say there's acidic diets that are in a lot of cat foods and human fast foods diets, the processed food, the acidic diets, over time, you have natural buffers like your albumin, your bicarbonates will buffer it. But if you start running low on that, because constantly beating up your body with acidic diet, the phosphorus, when it gets in the system, your blood's going to have to immediately counter it. And if there's nothing left, it's going to pull the calcium from the bones. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And hence, your animals and people get osteoporosis, and they get calcified arteries, which always confuses people. How can I have so much calcium in my blood and have osteoporosis? Well, because it's in the wrong spot.
Right.
Pulled in your blood serum to balance the pH and counter the phosphorus. And then when that gets filtered, because your urine mirrors your blood, when that gets filtered in the kidneys, that's what causes kidney stones and kidney damage from too much calcium. And so citrate can counterbalance that. Real simple trick, real simple fix. And so that's why we use the citrate in the hydration mix also. Okay.
I have a question about you mentioned pH levels to raise up the pH levels. Some cats, like, can you describe the level the pH should be? Because typically if cats are too alkaline, then we have bladder issues all over the place.
It's mix and matching the pH. So the pH in the blood is going to be 7.4 no matter what, right?
Okay.
So when the phosphorus is in the bloodstream, it tries to make it acidic and drop it, but it can't because the body's going to pull calcium from the bones into the serum blood.
Okay.
Now, when that goes into the urine, the citrate will actually balance it out. So it can act as a buffer. So the buffer goes either way now. So I can buffer it if it's too alkaline or too acidic.
Gotcha. So we're talking about blood pH, not urine pH.
Yeah, blood pH is always going to be the same, but trying to keep it there is what makes stress, pulls the calcium into the blood. And that's why phosphorus is such a bad guy, because it pulls in excess phosphorus, pulls it in the blood, and that pulls that same calcium through the kidneys and starts messing with the kidneys. So citrate, it won't necessarily raise the pH in the urine, but it's just trying to balance your blood. So like you're correct. You want your pH in the urine to be a max of 6.7. Ideally 6.0 in my opinion. You want it acidic to kill any kind of bacteria. And that with our the oral pills we have, the part 2, taking those in conjunction with it will bring the pH to around 6.0 in the urine.
Okay. What about for cats who develop is it the oxalate when they get too acidic? Stones?
No, the oxalate. Well, the oxalate is with the calcium.
Yeah.
So it's acidic related, but it's basically just too much calcium. It's not. I think oxalate itself gets a bad rap, but they talk about oxalate in spinach. It's nothing to do with that. It's you have too much phosphorus in your system, or too much acid, too much acidity going on.
Okay.
So if you can counter that with citrate, potassium citrate, it's going to push the calcium back into the bones, out of the bloodstream, and keep it out of the kidneys.
Awesome.
And it can also clear the kidneys too. If you have kidney stones, taking potassium citrate can break up those kidney stones pretty fast, within about a month if they have big ones, or a couple of weeks if they're small. Okay.
That's good to know, because I know a lot of, being the cat dad that you are, and cat kind of professional on the science side, a lot of cats have bladder issues, and they have urine issues, and and I know I have several clients whose cats are like prone to crystals one way or another, and so they are constantly trying to watch the diet and monitor the blood and monitor the urine and all of this kind of stuff. So I know that's what people are thinking when they're hearing some of this. So I wanted to just ask some of those questions on their behalf. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, like I say, with crystals, stones, the potassium citrate water, and that is proper dilution. So it's one stick pack. In here is a stick pack, 1 stick pack per liter.
Yeah.
Mix that in a liter purified water, and pour that in the cat bowl, and that will prevent and dissolve any kind of stones or crystals going on.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Okay, so what happened next? So you've got Zorro, like this perfect blood work. Your cardiologist is just like dumbfounded and doesn't even ask questions, walks away, sends you guys home and says, good luck to you, or whatever. Happy, maybe we'll see you. Probably they're thinking we'll see her again, because that's how they probably think, right? What's the next step for you and Zorro at this point? How do we maintain this on like this beautiful harmony of heart health and kidney health, and like jump in first?
Well, I will say, just to answer a question that you had asked when you were speaking before, Zorro was twitching a lot. I think Chris might have mentioned it. You were saying, how do people know if potassium? For Zorro, his back was like jumping, like his skin's like locked, and it stopped. So I don't know, maybe Chris, that was it. I think you mentioned it might have been, right?
Well, that's one of the many,
indicators,
effects of when you have deficiency in potassium. The nerve impulses, transmissions, that's what potassium controls. Muscle contractions, the cardiac rhythm, prevents arrhythmias in the heart. It's a central electrolyte that you have to have. And a lot of us, including our pets, are just deficient in it. And so there's a lot of these, they're not idiopathic in my opinion, they're just deficient. And everyone's kind of ignoring, the water aspect. They need to get the proper hydration.
So just wanted to touch on that quickly, but to your question, what's next? Well, we have a 6-month follow-up, which I anticipate will be perfect. I'm sticking to the exact Bloom protocol. Nothing is changing unless Chris instructs otherwise. We're sticking to what we're doing, and that's it. And I actually had, I went straight to my regular vet after the cardiologist. Poor Zorro, long day for him. But I had scheduled, and she even, you know, she said, I think I'm going to start giving my cat electrolytes because her cat's had some, you know, and I was like, yeah, she gave me a high five and she was all for it. And she really believes in the body's ability to heal itself. And she's referred, you know, a lot of her other patients, I told Chris, to the website to use the product since this what's had happened. So yeah, we're just going to go back in 6 months. And if that's good, I guess we'll go back once a year. I mean, we'll just do it to check, but you know, I anticipate everything is good. And I feel really confident that, you know, I found kind of like the key, the foundation, like that preventative, you know, giving them the best from the ground up. So yeah, really, really thankful. And my mom's cat's on it. I've got my friends on. I'm telling everybody.
That's awesome. Chris, here's a question. Is there such a thing as giving too much of the water to a cat that's healthy? I mean, if they, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, because it's the concentration is the same. So, if your cat drinks, you know, 5 ounces or 10 ounces, it's the proper concentration. And that's the difference I was talking about versus taking a dry pill that's going to spike it versus, you know, you're taking the milliequivalents per liter at the same level. So no matter if you're excess thirst or not that much thirsty that day, the water you take in is going to have the proper concentration of it.
Right. What about for cats who are raw fed, who really just get most of their moisture in their diet from their food? They don't really have an interest to drink much on top of that. Would you just add some into their food just to give them?
Yes. In wet food, I always say, you know, if you can add a capful, you know, whatever cans or capsules it comes in, just rinse it with the water and pour that in to get extra hydration.
Okay.
But if they're not that big of drinkers, definitely give them the pill, because another component that's really missing, and even in raw food, is sulfur. So if you go back and just read the archives, we farmed all the sulfur out of our soil back in 1932. So all of our food doesn't have sulfur, and sulfur is a major component of your blood.
Yeah.
And wild animals, you know, they eat whole live animals and they get the blood from the animal itself, and you're missing that component in all the animals' diets is sulfur. So in the water, we have MSM, which is a great mineral to boost up your sulfur, which is, again, it's a major component of your blood.
Right.
Also, the oral pill has MSM and its other sulfur components because the blood just needs that a lot more sulfur it's not getting.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I would give it, if they're not drinking much water, then get them on the oral pill in addition to it.
Now, you know, cats don't like to take pills.
Yeah.
So does it have to be a pill that you pop into their mouth, or can you dilute? Can you break it up? Can you add water to it? Can you, like, what would you do?
You go above. You just got to get it into the cat. So we have a bunch of tricks online, a video at the very bottom of the homepage that shows different tricks how to pill a cat.
Yeah.
You know, we like to mix it with churro, but one I like to do, because I feed a lot of cats, and I feed freeze-dried. So I break it up, then I get the bigger capsules, open up inside the bag, and just shake it all around. And measure how much they need, and that kind of absorbs into the freeze-dried. And when I add water to it, they don't seem to notice.
Yeah. Okay. Good enough. Because people, when you say you have to pill a cat, they're like, okay, you lost me. There's no way I'm winning that battle with my cat. They're just, you've seen all the cartoons with the, they're in the ER with bandages all over, and this,
Yeah, we are coming up with a chewable, but it's kind of tough. We want it all natural without any of the additives they put in it, which is kind of tough to come up with, but we're close. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a chewable. So
to kind of recap so far, cats they tend to be deficient, or pets just in general, right? They tend to be deficient in sulfur. They tend to be deficient in potassium. And this can create the perfect storm to develop these disease processes that, for example, that Zorro has gone through. And does that kind of encapsulate everything so far that we've talked about?
Yeah, it's a little more to it than that. I mean, so basically what any disease state does, it thickens the blood.
Okay.
And so what the water does, it naturally thins the blood, not to get mistaken as a blood thinner.
Right.
It's weird because blood thinners don't thin blood. They just prevent coagulation. They're called blood thinners. It naturally keeps the blood free flowing and thin. So it's less friction, and more friction, more sludgy it is, the higher the blood pressure is, and that's when all the damage happens. So what the water does, it keeps it in its healthy homeostasis state, where it's free-flowing blood and doesn't get clog up the arteries, doesn't clog up the capillaries, doesn't cause ischemia, which is causing the bald spots on Zorro's back and the skin. It's a very fine capillaries getting clogged with the disease state progressing and thickening the blood.
So when you and I had a first conversation, we did talk a lot about the status of the blood and how the perfect flow of blood, the viscosity. I mean, there's healthy blood, and then as it gets thicker, it doesn't have that same viscosity, and so that's when you start to get all of the damage and the chronic disease processes. Is that correct? So,
correct.
So the key is keeping that blood super healthy.
Yes, and just like the kidneys are filters basically.
Yes.
And just like in a car, your oil filter or your fuel filter, when those get clogged, you don't blame the filter, you blame what the fuel or oil you're putting into it. If you're putting dirty fuel or oil in it, that's what's causing the problem. It's not the filter itself.
Yes.
And so if you can keep that blood healthy and robust, you can be a lot better off. Yeah. But there's a great study done in 1947. It was up for three times the Nobel Prize. It's called Sludge Blood. And that talked in detail. It's an 18-year study that described the correlation of thickened sludge blood with the progression of disease. They go hand in hand. The faster it thickens, the faster disease progresses.
Wow.
And the whole goal of that study was try and find a drug that can naturally thin the blood until you can figure out how to cure that disease. But the only mistake on that study was they assumed it was a drug you needed, when in reality we think it's just natural chemistry with electrolytes and proper food.
And who is that visiting your desk?
Mr. Beans. This is little rescue Beans. She was a homeless cat for many years.
Aww.
And I rescued her, so she kind of is my little office cat. Sits up here.
I love that. And Ava, where is Mr. Zorro tonight?
He's upstairs, like surveying his kingdom, looking, and then Riri's out on the patio. So they, they're doing their thing, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. I get distracted by cats, so I have to ask questions. Right. As you've seen, I've got a couple running around here trying to get my attention. Okay, this has been very, very fascinating. So, Chris, is there anything we haven't talked about regarding the Bloom's Bioscience products and recommendations for how to use them? If there's something we haven't talked about that you just really want the cat community or just pet community, I guess this would go for dogs too. What out there is there anything else you want to just educate us on about this?
Yeah, so there's two parts. There's the hydration part, and then we have the oral your Vitalife, which is the oral part, which is 14 different high-end supplements. So where the water is going to stabilize your blood and make it electrokinetically proper, this will actually act like fertilizer for the vascular system. You have two parts to it. So your whole entire vascular system is lined with what's called the glycocalyx, and that's what has the negative charge to it. It lines your kidneys, it lines all your 100,000 miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries.
Yes.
That's what makes it frictionless. If that can be robust and your blood's robust, they're both negatively charged, there's zero friction. But as the friction builds up from the blood getting thick, that glycocalyx is scraped away from viscosity. Friction just rubs it off, and that's when chaos starts. That's what controls your vascular system. That's what controls the nutrients going back and forth. That's what regulates the blood flow. Yeah. And so I also recommend, if you have any kind of disease state or you want to do as preventative, is get the fertilizer for your vascular system.
Okay. And then what about the Rutin product? Can you talk a little bit more about that and when that's needed and when to implement that in this whole protocol?
Yeah, so we have the two main products, and we have two ancillary ones for secondary issues such as pleural effusions and pulmonary edema. And we actually developed that because we work a lot with FIP cats, and those are the common symptoms for them.
Yes.
And so So nobody else had Rutin for animals. So a lot of the rescues were just begging us to please get Rutin. So we did. And it helps a lot with, it's shown with inflammation that goes along with pleural effusions. But it's not as important as the water, because the water, again, what edema is when you're peeing out plasma proteins, those plasma proteins are what controls edema. So the oncotic pressure of your plasma proteins inside the vascular system is going to pull the fluid from the interstitial into the vascular system and prevent edema in the first place. But once it gets to that state, you want to do the water to stop the proteinuria. But then what's going to help with inflammation, it's just a very strong antioxidant, is Rutin.
Okay. Very good to know. You've covered a lot of bases with your products, which is great. But you've also simplified it. You've kind of narrowed it down to like, this is the most important aspect, and that would be the blood, right?
Right, the vascular system, including the blood, right?
Yeah.
The lining, the endothelial lining of your vascular system and the blood itself, they go hand in hand.
Yeah. So if we can get those in balance and homeostasis, you can fend off chronic disease, you can fend off illness, you can rebalance from illness, right? Have there been other case studies that you've kind of looked at that you can talk about or share stories?
Several. We have them posted on the research section of our website. So there's cats with hematuria, which is similar to proteinuria. Again, it's just blood leaking into the cats are peeing blood. And they have the same symptoms. They get lethargic, they kind of curl in a corner. They don't want to move, they don't want to eat, they don't want to drink. They're flu-like symptoms. So we have a cat that was stuck at a vet with peeing blood. They didn't know what to do with it. It's like, well, just give them the water. The vet kind of reluctantly agreed. And we did a pretty cool study the vet did, showing how, within that day, it peed clear water. Well, the first one had blood. The second one, clear pee. Third, clear pee. Fourth, clear pee. The fifth day, another vet was in the office, didn't give it the water, it peed blood again. And I said, oops, let's give that water again, which just shows every time you eat or drink, you're changing the chemistry.
Yeah.
And so what was going on there was we're stabilizing the blood until we can get it revitalized to rebuild the glycocalyx and to help, regrow the inside lining of it to prevent it further.
Wow.
But there's, several cats with kidney stones, which it's all the same. We talk about it, it's all the same progression, all the same mechanism.
Yeah.
As cats had kidney stones for years, are pretty big, and so they gave the water. Within a month, the kidney stones were no longer in the X-rays, broken up, and the cat was just a much happier cat.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good point. Like, do people have to continue using this for the life of the animal, or once you've corrected something? Like, what does the ongoing process look like for?
Well, the water we recommend. This is the proper water you should be drinking. You, me, the cats, the dogs should all be drinking. This is our ancestral spring water, ideal water from the Garden of Eden we should be drinking, in my opinion. The pill, if you're not going to change your diet and stick with your, the deficiency you have, then you have to take the pill. But if you're going to change your diet and make up the deficiencies, then you don't need the pill.
Right.
Once you get there. But the water you're definitely going to have, because you have to drink water.
Right. And
you should be drinking the correct water. If there are some good mineral waters out there. They're a lot more expensive. You can go that route. Also, I think in Mineral Wells, Texas, they have crazy water. That's pretty good. It's not as balanced, but it's light years ahead of the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got to remember that water isn't just water. You need the proper water because ancestrally we got a lot of electrolytes and minerals from our water, and everybody's short on potassium. The only way to get proper potassium levels is to take it in your water.
Interesting. Okay. That's really interesting to know. And I know we've talked on the show about having your water tested in your home and going on to EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, to see how horrible your water really is. You can just enter your zip code and it will give you a report from your municipality to show you what chemicals are in that water, what, metals, whatever comes up. And it's quite scary that municipalities are able to sell you, and I'll say sell because we pay for that water,
Yeah.
It's not clean and it's not pure. It's just loaded with the crap that is not good for us. And so that's why you cannot drink tap water, people. You cannot drink tap water. It is not safe. It's definitely going to work against you long term, maybe even short term. So it doesn't take long to kind of throw things out of balance if you're ingesting all of that garbage on a regular daily basis. So water would be like the most important thing to maintain just healthy blood and cardiovascular circulatory system components. Obviously, diet for cats, huge
Yes.
moisture-based diet, carnivore. Feed your cat like a carnivore because that's what they are. Get them off the dry food and fresh, as fresh as you can afford to feed, as often as you can afford to feed. That would be helpful because of the intracellular moisture they get from their food. Any other thoughts, Ava? Do you have anything else that you've done with Zorro or Riri?
No, I went from a bag of, 6, 7, 8 meds
Mm-hmm.
and a chart and all these things that I had to administer to just the water. And I do, the immune and just like 2 or 3 supplements. And that's it. And it's very easy. And you put them in a little, wrap it, and that's it. And I really, no, honestly, it's so much simpler. They enjoy, my cats thankfully like to eat the little wrap ups around the pill. So they think it's a treat. So we're good. And that's it. I mean, it simplified life and made it better. So
That's awesome.
We're on it forever now.
That's awesome. Chris, before you wrap up, tell people where they can find you, your website, check out your products and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find us at Bloom Bioscience, one word, bloombioscience.com. That's the only place we're available right now. We will be in retail, but not probably for another year.
Okay. That's awesome. And if they have any questions, they can just go to your website and, you have a contact information.
Yes, we have email forms. You can email them in, you can text them in, or you can call in.
Yeah, awesome.
And there's a lot of good resource on the website, on the research section, that talks about Ava's case study and several of the case studies, in particular, of what's going on with the animal. And one quick note on Eva's case, her cat was pretty healthy, and the acute kidney injury was an easy one to treat because there's no kidney damage yet. Eva was just a phenomenal mom, was on top of it. Didn't wait for it to progress and wait for those kidneys to get scarred. So that's why she had such fast results, because the kidneys were what's called non-isotemic. They were still working perfect. It's just they're crashing, and we were able to, catch the egg, but hit the ground and splattered. So that's why hers happened so fast, because she was, mom on the spot and took care of it quick.
Yes, she's a very good cat mom.
Yeah.
It takes a village, though, right? So
not everybody is compliant, and consistent.
Yeah.
And when you're going through crisis, that's not the time to like curl up in a fetal position and crawl under the covers, right? We've got to get in there and work really hard and be very consistent to get out of that crisis zone, and then you can take a deep breath. But kudos to you for sacrificing your sleep and whatever it is that you sacrificed over those several days, watching him go from crisis mode to recovery to zoomies in the house. That's
worth it.
It's worth it, and it's very rewarding. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and then you learn so much along the way, right? And you just want everybody to know about it. So thank you for, giving us this opportunity to share everything. It's wonderful.
Well, I think it's important because, again, we don't know what we don't know. And there's new things that come in, on the market all the time. And let's face it, the supplement world and the pet supplement world is never ending, and it's overwhelming for a lot of people. They don't know quite where to start. And it's like, putting a blindfold on and playing darts. You're just shooting in the dark a lot of times. You don't really know if what you're doing is helping or not helping, or how much it's helping. So this is just a really cool way to kind of funnel down to, let's get the blood and the circulation right, and then watch everything else kind of start to rebalance itself. And work with your vet, introduce your vet to, if they're open-minded to the products of Bloom Bioscience. And if they have questions, they can always reach out to Chris, who's done the research. He's a science guy. he's He's the engineer, and I love that. He's like, you take the science brain and you take the compassion and cat loving brain and you kind of merge them all together and you find ways to develop these amazing products. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to share your stories and give some hope and some education to our viewers. I really, really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you, Pam. Really appreciate you having me on here. And Ava, great seeing you again. I'm so glad Zorro's doing well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, guys, we will be back next month for another show. Until then, hug your cats, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.